Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de, well, all the dumb clickbaity articles that makes it sound like a billionaire like Elon Musk lives in a 50K house. It's in all the papers. Should we take that at face value? Well, I'm a cynic, so obviously no, and I'll explain why. Hey, Zempak here. So most of you should have gotten a sense by now that I do think that living efficiently is a real boon. Not just to yourself, but to society as a whole. And though I don't really care about society as a whole outside of my own sphere of influence, for obvious reasons, but what really grinds my gear are articles like the ones that I'll link below in my description that talks about how Elon Musk now lives in a $50,000 house. So basically the gist of the article is that how Elon Musk, despite being super duper rich, foregoes the mansions and lives in a very humble dwelling. This is in the form of the Casita tiny house, right? That's prefabbed in a factory, can easily be placed anywhere with a very small foundational footprint, right? And since moving to Texas, where Elon Musk lives now, he lives in one of these that's actually rented via his space company on the grounds near his work, basically. Big disclaimer right off the bat. I actually really like the company that makes the prefab house that Elon's living in, and that's a company called fab'd. I really enjoy it. I think the product has fantastic, efficient design, and even the price is not that bad at 50K, right? I like everything about this company and its take on the tiny house, and frankly, at some point in the future, I'd like to get me one of those, right? Having said that, I find the claim that Elon only lives in a 50K house to be a ridiculous claim and a general misunderstanding of real estate and assets and how rich people live, right? So let me break it down for you, right? Point number one. Okay, first of all, he's renting. Okay, he did not buy this property as his own personal property. Think about it like this. If you were renting, do you look up the property estimate of which house you're living in and then tell everyone, hey, I live in a $1 million mansion or a 200K house? It doesn't really matter, right? I'd imagine most people wouldn't do that because while you're renting, you have no idea how much investment actually has gone into the property that you live in because you did not personally buy it, right? Now, obviously, Elon Musk's situation is quite different because he's renting a very, very relatively affordable type of housing, especially compared to his net worth, right? Yet, wouldn't you, considering the fact that he's only renting as a sign that he's not particularly committed to this supposed much more minimal or frugal or efficient lifestyle? If it's as awesome as his social media posts about it suggests, why not just buy it outright, right? Now, of course, there's even more additional caveats that he's renting from a company that he actually owns, right? This is totally legal and fine, and honestly just adds yet another dimension to how the rich do things differently, right? I'm assuming he's doing this whole renting from the company thing to get tax breaks and, tax write-offs and that sort of things, right? This is going to be more than us normal people can really imagine, right? Again, if he's really trying to simply live humbly and leave a low footprint, would he really need to minimize his tax burdens by even writing such a relatively low living expenses off as I imagine he's actually doing here? Now, that's just talking about how the structure of his living situation is different than the rest of us, right? But really, my point number two is that I'm going to actually ignore the whole structuring of how he procured his current living situation and just pretend he bought it instead, right? So we can debate whether he really lives in a 50K worth of house, right? And just ignore all the arguments about tax implications and how he's renting for his own company, because that's not really fun, and nor is it relatable to most people, right? So let's just assume he bought his tiny house, right? The Casita by Boxable. Would it be fair to say then that he lives in a 50K house? Still a no, okay? I want to make it clear that anybody interested in tiny houses, the cost quoted is usually just the structure itself, right? But that's not how normal people talk about our own houses, right? That's as if you own your own, say, single-family home, when asked, oh, what kind of housing you live in, or what's your house worth, you answer with, oh, well, here's all the cost of the materials and construction, the plywood and the drywall that make up my house. which let's pretend it's like 100K, right? Would you say that? You see the problem here? Because you're ignoring the value of the land that your regular house sits on, right? The land is the actual appreciating asset in real estate. The actual structure on top is more similar in terms of an asset. It's a depreciating asset. It's closer to an electronics or a car, because all they do once you build it up is get weather beaten and depreciate, right? Now, as much as I love the design and relative affordability of the Casita, 50K only bought you a structure. You still need to put it somewhere to actually live in, okay? So let's ride on this tangent, shall we, and see what Elon's situation would most likely cost if he was buying, right? As most of us, if we want to reasonably talk about our own housing worth. So 50K for a structure, that part we know. House still needs to sit on a foundation, have utilities plugged in. That could easily run another 50K. Of course, we still need a piece of land, right? So I took a peek at the area around Starbase, Texas, and guess what? The closest lot of land that anyone can buy to Starbase, by the way, it's about 48 acres and costs $6 million. Obviously, that's huge, right? So let's look at a more reasonable plot for a single-family home. Nearby, in a nearby township, there's lots of lots for anywhere between 50K to 700K. Now, price is mostly dictated by how large the lot is, right? So, do you think a billionaire that has fans all over the world would want neighbors who can peek into his bathroom window with the naked eye? Or maybe he'll pick something, that's a bit more separated so that he can have some privacy, right? Yeah, I'll be kind and not even give him that most expensive lot, right, in this hypothetical exercise, but just probably near the top end of what can be found in town. So let's say about 500K. So right now we have a tiny house, 50K, on a reasonably sized lot, 500K, with the foundation work, another 50K. So are we done? Oh, heck no. You're forgetting about landscaping, okay? This is America. So of course, since Elon would certainly want privacy, even if he already has a reasonable sized lot, right? He's essentially going to be trying to make the Starbase in its related area boom. So there's certainly... So it's almost certainly that any lot that he buys currently wouldn't come with existing landscaping, right? So I would, remember, you have less house, that means you have more yard. So I would put in another quote for at least another 200K just in landscaping, all right? And we're already, at this point, up to $800,000. And Elon, being the mad kind of genius that he is, right? I'm positive he'll want some sort of esoteric touches in his surroundings. I don't know, maybe like a garage with heated floors and all the trimmings or whatever. Let's just, call that another, 100, 150, and guess where we ended up? Probably about $1 million, right? Sure, this is not a McMansion, right? Not any sort of mansion, but it's still a dwelling, but still. Is this cheap? Is this replicable for normal people? I don't think so, okay? Look, at the end of the day, I'm not ragging on Elon, okay? To me, living as he chooses to live is still infinitely better than living like most pro athletes who houses all their childhood cronies, or Drake who has a $100 million apartment, doesn't even come with land. It's ridiculous, right? At the very least, it shows me Mr. Musk actually understands that, living is about overcoming challenges, not just material comforts, right? Almost all mansion spaces, by the way, are wasted to begin with. And don't get me started on the ever-escalating size of American homes that are currently being built, right? That's just because developers want to charge more money per house. It is absurd. Nobody on the planet needs almost 1,000 square foot per person, right? That's what the average single-family home is being built these days, right? Almost to that level. So in this sense, Elon's a great role model. He's just one dude, and he lives in under 400 square feet of interior living space. So if that guy can do that, so can all of us, right? So then why did I make this clip? Well, let me be clear. It is to rag on the stupidity of the financial media, right? Shame on them. It's writings like this that fools regular folks into thinking, oh, maybe I can reduce my housing costs down to 50K. Well, you absolutely cannot, okay? Even if you don't need a giant lot for privacy reasoning and on all the accompanied landscaping features, there's a huge problem with zoning uses for tiny homes. It's just not that easy unless you already have land to put it on, right? So while I still like the idea of what tiny houses stand for, until we start being honest, about things like local ordinances and old-fashioned ideas of what makes a house a part of a community, And the real cost that comes with that, the dream of more efficient living, will still remain just that, a dream. Okay. Anyway, comment, likes, and subscribe or whatever, right? Do you guys want to make your living situations more efficient? How's your living situation right now? Tell me about it in the comments below. Cheers.